Imagine this. Someone insults you. You don't say anything. You walk away. The conversation is over. But 3 hours later, you're still arguing with them. Except now, the argument is happening inside your head. You replay their words. You imagine the perfect comeback. You think about what you should have said. Then you get angry all over again. And here's the disturbing part. That person hasn't done anything to you for the last 3 hours. You're doing it to yourself. They said the words once. Your mind repeated them 50 times. They went on with their day. You carried them into yours. So let me ask you something that might completely change the way you look at difficult people. What if the person who keeps ruining your peace isn't actually the person controlling you? What if they've simply discovered a button inside you and you've been pressing it for them? Because the strongest person in the room isn't the one who can win every argument. It's the person who can be insulted, provoked, misunderstood, even disrespected, and still decide what happens next. And once you understand the psychology behind that ability, something strange happens. The people who used to control your mood start losing their power. Not because they changed, because you did. In this video, we're going to break down exactly how that happens. And by the end, you'll have a practical system for staying calm when someone is deliberately trying to get a reaction out of you. But first, there's one thing you need to understand. Your emotions may be reacting to something that happened years ago, not what's happening right now. 1. Stop giving other people the remote control. Think about the phrase, "They know exactly how to push my buttons." We say it all the time, but there's a problem with that sentence. It makes you sound like a remote-controlled machine. Someone presses a button, and you automatically react. They insult you, you're angry. They ignore you, you're hurt. They criticize you, you're defensive. They become disrespectful, you become disrespectful back. But here's the shift. A trigger is not a command. Someone can trigger an emotion without controlling your behavior. That's an enormous difference. Imagine your coworker makes a sarcastic comment during a meeting. Your first instinct might be, who does this guy think he is? You feel your body tense. Your heart beats faster. You start preparing a response. But instead of immediately reacting, pause. Ask yourself, why did that comment affect me this much? Maybe it touched an old insecurity. Maybe you have spent years feeling like people don't respect you. Maybe criticism reminds you of someone from your past. The important discovery isn't that the other person is powerful. It's that they found a sensitive place inside you. And once you know where that place is, you can work on it. The goal isn't to become impossible to trigger. The goal is to become increasingly difficult to control. 2. Anger is often hiding something else. Here's something most people don't realize about anger. Sometimes anger isn't the deepest emotion. It's the bodyguard. Underneath anger can be hurt, fear, embarrassment, rejection, shame, or the feeling that you don't matter. Think about someone forgetting something important to you. You might say, "You never care about anything I say." But underneath those words might be something much more honest. "I wanted to feel important to you." That's a completely different conversation. Anger attacks. Vulnerability communicates. And that's why anger can become so destructive. It protects us from feeling exposed. It's easier to say, "You're selfish," than "That really hurt me." It's easier to say, "I don't care," than "I was hoping you would care." It's easier to become cold than to admit you're disappointed. So the next time you feel intense anger, don't immediately ask, "What did they do?" Ask, what they did make me feel?" That question takes you underneath the anger, and that's where the real problem usually lives. 3. Find the tiny moment between trigger and reaction. Now we reach one of the most important skills in emotional control. There is a tiny gap between what happens and what you do about it. Someone sends you a disrespectful message. You read it. Instant reaction. Are you serious? Your fingers move toward the keyboard. You start typing, but then you stop. That pause may last only a few seconds, but those seconds are incredibly valuable because you don't have to respond to the first emotion that appears. You can choose your response. Ask yourself, what response will I respect tomorrow? Not, what response feels satisfying right now? Those are often two very different answers. The angry response may feel amazing for 10 seconds, but tomorrow you may regret it. The calm response may feel less satisfying in the moment, but tomorrow you'll be glad you chose it. That's emotional maturity, not eliminating the first reaction, controlling the second one. 4. Become the observer instead of becoming the emotion. Here's a simple mental trick. Change the way you describe what's happening inside your mind. Instead of saying, "I'm angry," say, "I'm noticing anger." Instead of, "I'm anxious," say, "I'm noticing anxiety." Instead of, "This person is making me furious," say, "I'm noticing that my body is becoming tense around this person." It sounds like a tiny linguistic change, but psychologically, it creates distance. You're no longer completely inside the emotion. You're watching it. Think about watching a storm through a window. The storm is real. The rain is real. The wind is real. But you don't have to become the storm. Your emotions can be the same way. You can notice your heart racing. You can notice your jaw tightening. You can notice the thought, "I need to defend myself." And instead of immediately obeying that thought, you watch it. That gives your mind room to choose. And sometimes the strongest response isn't saying something brilliant. It's realizing, "I don't need to respond to this at all." 5. Stop seeing difficult people only as enemies. Now here's a perspective shift that can completely change your relationships. What if difficult people are not only obstacles? What if they're also revealing your weaknesses? Think about physical exercise. You don't become stronger by lifting weights that are always comfortable. Resistance is what creates strength. Emotional strength works in a similar way. That incredibly impatient coworker might be teaching you patience. That controlling person might be forcing you to develop boundaries. That person who constantly criticizes you might be exposing your dependence on approval. This doesn't mean bad behavior should be tolerated. It doesn't mean you should stay in unhealthy relationships. It means you can extract a lesson from difficult interactions. Instead of asking, "Why is this person doing this to me?" ask, "What skill is this situation forcing me to develop?" Maybe it's patience, maybe assertiveness, maybe emotional detachment. Maybe the ability to say no, maybe the ability to walk away without needing the last word. When you start thinking this way, something changes. You stop seeing every difficult interaction as an attack. Sometimes it's training. Now let's bring all of this together. Don't try to master everything at once. For the next 7 days, choose just one skill. When someone triggers you, don't immediately react. Pause. Notice the emotion. Then ask, what is actually happening right now? Next, what story am I telling myself about it? Then, what response would I be proud of tomorrow? That's it. You don't need to become a completely different person overnight. You need to create small moments where the old reaction doesn't win. Because every time you pause instead of explode, you strengthen that ability. Every time you set a boundary instead of building resentment, you strengthen that ability. Every time you walk away instead of saying something you'll regret, you strengthen that ability. And eventually something strange begins to happen. The same people who used to control your mood don't have the same power anymore. They may still be rude. They may still be annoying. They may still misunderstand you. But something inside you has changed. You stop asking, "How do I make difficult people behave differently?" and start asking, "How do I remain myself regardless of how they behave?" That's the real goal. Because emotional freedom doesn't mean nobody can ever hurt you. It means someone else's behavior no longer gets unlimited access to your mind. They can knock on the door. They can make noise outside. They can even try to provoke you. But you decide whether the door opens. And the next time someone says something that instantly changes your mood, remember this. You don't control their first move, but you still control your next one. And sometimes that tiny space between the two is where your entire life